What's up, dudes and dudettes? My name's Scythe, and today we are going to be taking a first look at the Memory of Eldurim. I hope I'm saying that right, but I'm not exactly sure. Now, I have been actually having a ton of fun with this game, especially considering that there's not even that much content technically in this build. Although the game itself is very far along in terms of its basic gameplay and development and stuff. So you can kind of see here, immediately, it's an RPG in one of these games where you go around grabbing stuff. This first chest right here, this is giving you a health potion, which you can see charges 30 out of 30. Now, this potion can recharge its charges, but you kind of gotta sleep or like wait and stuff like that. And this is actually a life shard. This is your first magic spell that you get on the shard menu. You want to bring it, drag it, put it over into your hand right here, and then you click and bring these spells over down to your hotbar. You can also get this primal beam, which I guess is your default magic and stuff like that. But we'll get into the menus a little bit further along, because otherwise we're going to talk to Ian right here. You lived. You mean I live? I can't believe you survived that storm. You rest here for a while as you like, and old Ian will take care of you. Storm. Do you remember? We found you in a storm, haven't had one like that in a couple years. The next day, though, found you on the surf of the coast, blah, blah, blah. We'll kind of skip through most of this because it doesn't really matter. You must have been part of the crew of the ship of reinforcements that we ordered. Blah, blah, blah. Reinforcements right here. I check in town to see if you can find anyone else that survived. Here, I'll give you a map. I drew it by hand, so it may be a bit shaky, but I promise it is accurate. And as soon as you open your map, that is not a shaky map. That's actually a very, like, this guy is an artist as well as a liar, and he's a bit modest about it too. But anyway, we are actually right here. And this map actually is very, very handy. And you can actually go when you go down here to the villains, which we'll probably get to do in today's first look, maybe. You can actually go a lot further. Like, this map does not have the entire island. And as you can see immediately, this game is absolutely beautiful, especially for an indie game. I love it. Like, look at this. It's great. And you know, I was looking at earlier builds of the game, and I mean, this game's come quite a long way. One of the things I do want to mention is that our skills right here. I don't know if you can necessarily level up most of your abilities right now, but you can kind of see immediately that this game has a very good idea of where it's going to go in development. Like, these titles aren't in the game yet, combos aren't in the game yet, but you can tell just based on the menu that they're going to be. As you can see, we only have 5 skills right now, or proficiencies. As you end up picking up different gear, like as soon as we pick up our first spear, it adds a spear category. And as far as I can tell, using the abilities levels them up, because I've seen screenshots of people that have gotten like their sword ability from horrible to awful. So I'm guessing that you just level it up passively. However, I've played this game for about 7 hours just on my own main file, and I've pretty much done everything that there is to do in this game, and I never got any of my skills up, so I don't know how it actually works for all the grinding and stuff. Anyway, for the sake of this video, we could go exploring and stuff. We're just gonna go right over here to the main NPCs. You want to talk to Mytha? Or Mytha or something. I don't know. Blah, blah, blah. She says how you need to scout a further area up ahead who may have been, a scout may have been attacked by bandits. This guy also talks about how bandits kicked him out of a dig site, which are the first 2 quests that you can go and get. However, it says right here on the quest menu, quests are available, but the quest log is coming soon, which the quest log is going to be great when it's actually in this game. Because as it stands right now, I will admit that the main quest is very grindy. Like, it's kind of a fetch quest, you know? A lot of fetch quests in this game, and the exploration is kind of where it's at. Like, you can actually, even right now, without even starting a quest, you can get all the way up there. There's actually a big boss battle up there where he ends up dropping some really good gear. You can go pretty much the entirety of the map, and that's another point to say that the development of this game, like, I don't know because this is my, like, this first look is my first attempt at playing this game, so I don't know earlier development cycles, but I just naturally assume that this whole map must have been made first, and then they started adding content to it afterwards. Like, they really do have a game in mind, which is saying a lot compared to most early access games. But the reason that I'm kind of standing up here is I just wanted to show you that later on in the main quest, you actually go over to those windmills, talk to this same girl NPC, and she says, go all the way back here to town, talk to some guy, then you go all the way back out there, talk to her again, she sends you all the way back to town again, and at this stage in the game, it's very grindy because there is not any faster means of travel other than just running around and stuff like that. Also, that camp that, or the house that we ended up spawning in, which is right down there, that is pretty much your permanent spawn point, unless you end up finding campfires, which is kind of like Dark Souls, where as soon as you activate them, that sets your spawn point. This game very much reminds me of Gothic or Two Worlds, while also being a bit like Dark Souls, but extremely easy. Now, this guy right here is your smith, so you can show your wares and you can get all sorts of stuff from him. Here's your first level of currency. Once you get 100 of these, you get one of these. 100 of these goes to one of these, etc. You've seen it in any other game. So you can kind of see here that we can sell this chicken and stuff for $5 each. This guy is extremely overpriced. You don't want to end up buying any of this stuff because as it stands right now, you are going to find better gear, like just straight up. This is the inn over here. You're going to need to remember that because a lot of main quests do actually point to it. There is also the hall right up there. And eventually the main quest has you going up there back and forth, and it's a little bit tedious too. But for right now, we're just going to go out and explore and start fighting a couple enemies and stuff. But just before that, I wanted to show you that if you ever get low on health and you don't have anything to heal, you can actually come to any bed. And this is actually really cool. You can click on any time of day, and it does it in real time, and it takes you to that time of day as well as healing you. So this is actually a fantastic feature, I think, because especially for someone like me, I can't stand nighttime in video games, you know, especially because it's just so dark all the time. They do have quite a bit of torches and stuff in this game, but still nighttime is particularly dark. Not as dark as some other games like survival games especially and stuff like that, but I like the idea that you can go over to midday. Now, what I'm actually doing right now is there doesn't seem to be any system in place where the guards come after you. So here is actually a guard, an Eldurim guard, which is supposed to be, I guess, what we are or what those townsfolk are. So if we are careful, we can actually kill him. And the guards are none the wiser. They don't care. And we can get ourselves some beautiful early gear. So this is very, very handy. The enemies too, this includes guards and stuff like that. Everything respawns, so don't worry about that guy being dead. You know, he will end up coming back, and that's okay. And the thing that's also very, very cool, by the way, here's a treasure chest, because there's lots of treasure all over the world. You can kind of see with the compared gear too that most of that stuff that we ended up grabbing was utterly useless. But now, look at us. We already got a cape and we're beautiful. But anyway, enemies and characters, although they will always end up dropping a set, a gear set, like bandits are pretty much always going to drop bandit gear, for example. They can always drop varied versions of bandit gear. So it's like they could drop a very good bandit sword. That guard that we just saw down there, I've actually seen a variant of him where he spawns with a spear rather than this scimitar type of sword that we have. But our first bandit enemies are up here, and I'm going to show you a bit of the combat when you're actually like blocking. You can kind of just get through combat. Whoa! Okay, this guy's a bit tough. He's a bit strong right now. There we go. Yeah! I actually really like the combat. It's very, very stiff, but it works, you know, and it also is very, very deadly at all times, where it's like if you are not, oh, we got our first pauldrons here, good. If you're not blocking, if you're not careful and taking care of yourself, you can actually get killed very, very quickly. Like, seriously, this game can be brutal. If you're fighting 2 enemies at once, they'll just gang up on you, and it's just GG, it's game over. Now, I want to check right here, because this game actually also has dual wielding is already a thing, which is very, very cool. You can kind of see when you do your 1-2, it's a little bit faster. Of course, your stamina does drain, but I would highly recommend, if you're dual wielding, to use your strong attack, because you can spam it, and it's a lot faster than doing the left click 1-2 thing. As you can kind of see, it takes him a little bit of a wind up punch. Now, there's another bandit up there. I just want to show you this, because we're not going to fight that guy. That is a golem, and he is very, very powerful. He's a very strong enemy, one of the strongest in the game right now, even when you end up getting later gear, because his abilities, which I guess we can I'll just kind of show you all, like, when you're too far away from him, he's actually gonna throw physics rocks at you, and it's absolutely beautiful, because they kind of like actually tumble around the area and stuff. It's really neat, you know, like, I really like them. But anyway, you can get a stone spell in here, so we're just gonna grab that and get out of here. And as you're using magic, you're going to notice there is a middle meter just on top of our weapons. As soon as we cast that healing spell, you can see it filled up with a little bit of blue. That is kind of, it's your Inger, the game calls it. And as it fills up, you can see that healing spell makes it fill up quite a bit. So if you heal, or if you use it up all the way, which I'll try and do right now just for the sake of, I don't want to end up hurting ourselves too much. But you can kind of see he goes into a bit of a crazy mode. And while that is going on, like, the game really doesn't want you to be using more spells than you can at a time, because otherwise you're going to start taking some major damage, like, seriously. Now these bandits down here are not tied to a quest, as near as I can tell, but you want to be very careful to try and lure, at least at the beginning of the game right here. Get out of here, you jerk. But you only want to fight one enemy at a time, because otherwise you're going to end up getting your butt kicked, like, really early on. Now, another thing too, which it looks like, yeah, we got a guy right here with a two-handed sword, which is one of my favorite weapons in most any video game, and including this one too. The two-handed weapons are very, very powerful. Some of the strongest weapons in the game right now, as far as I can tell, are two-handed weapons, at least until you can get your hands on 2 of the strongest single-handed weapon, which is actually gotten by defeating a very powerful but beautiful boss. Hiya! So, two-handed weapons are extremely overpowered right now, especially at the beginning part of the game, because most of the enemies, like, enemies don't seem to have any other levels in and stuff like that right now. I think that's because your main character doesn't actually level up. Like, it's all just kind of based on gear right now. So, if you get your hands on a two-handed weapon, you can pretty much one-hit almost all the enemies. Now, what we're actually going to be doing right up here is I'm trying to go and head over to one of the first quests, which is over here at the dig site. Whoa! Because this is that quest that we started where a bunch of bandits ended up chasing him away. And you can see right over there, whenever there is a red indicator like that, that means that it is a quest item. So we're going to grab that. That was the guy's toolkit. And like I said, this game is very fetch quest heavy, so we're not really going to do that on camera. But otherwise, we actually would go all the way back to town, tell him we got his toolkit, and he would tell you, ah, yeah, you got my toolkit, but you didn't end up, like, there's the bandit leader. So he actually sends you all the way back here to kill the bandit leader. Then you go all the way back to town and tell him of your deed of killing the bandit leader. Like, seriously, this game is very fetch quest heavy. Like, I very much like the exploration and stuff, and some of the main quests are actually very epic, yes indeed. But the fetch quests are a bit too much. They really, really are. Take that. Now, you see right there what I was saying earlier? This is actually a leather belt, just the same old belt that any of the bandits can drop, but it ended up getting a green variant, so it's a stronger version of. That can happen with all of their gear. You can actually get blue and even in some very rare cases, yellow legendary gear from an enemy drop too. Now this scrawled note is tied to the girl that we talked to in the middle of town, the main quest, and as you can see right on the map here, we are actually right at the edge. this is where the villains are. And excuse my sniffling throughout this video too. I got a bit of a cold going on. But anyway, these are kind of the enemy faction. And way later, you end up coming over here and actually having a big epic war against like thousands of these characters. It's really, really crazy and cool. But it's very handy to kill one of these guys really early on, because as you can see, we end up getting the next level up of gear. And for the most part, this ends up being your strongest gear until you end up killing, like, there will be an elite version of these enemies. He's a general that you have to kill, part of the main quest. But like I said, all the enemies do reappear. This includes bosses, and I hope this is going to be a feature in the main game too, because you can grind them for better versions of their gear as well. Now, bosses and enemies and stuff like that seem to respawn based on, I think they respawn if you sleep. I'm not exactly sure, but I know they respawn if you die. And right now there is no penalty, like I was saying. If you end up dying, you do just respawn back at the fishing hut unless you have set up a campfire. And then if you die and respawn at the campfire, then it's like you have to reactivate the campfire again. Otherwise, oh no! Speaking of which, that was very close. We almost died right there. I didn't even click right there, and he kind of started doing his attacking, which the combat is, it's sticky, it is, but it works. I like it. I actually really enjoy this game because you can exploit it like crazy. You know, you can get enemies stuck. You can sneak around and get them right in the back if you time it right, like that right there. You know, you just rush up to enemies and just one-shot them. Usually it's really good in fields and stuff like that. I also really do like, I do gotta point out, I love the fact that the bushes actually move away from your character. I think that's so cool. Now, as far as the capes too, there's this cape, and then there's one that you get from that general boss, which I was talking about. He's a little bit further on in the main quest. And those are the only two caves right now, as far as I can tell. But anyway, we're going to turn in a couple of these quests. Stone Bridge, finish us off, blah, blah, blah. She wants us to go and start fighting some more enemies. This is the guy where you turn in his toolkit, and then he wants us to go and fight the boss that's over in the same area. Now, just for the sake of right now, just because I do already have a character that's kind of at the end, I'm gonna kind of swap over to that character right now and go over to the later area just to kind of give you all an idea of what you're going to be doing like at the end of this game. I guess I would kind of consider this game a playable demo rather than just being like an early access underdeveloped game, you know? Like it really is very, very cool to see that this game is actually being developed. I don't think you can get up there. That's the one area of the map I can't seem to get to. Maybe you can. Maybe there's a main quest that gets you to it, but as far as I can tell, my main quest is a little bit glitched out. But you can explore pretty much everywhere else on the map. Over there is the archives, which is one of the deadlier places of the game, until you end up getting some later gear because it's got wraiths and stuff like that. But either way, I'm going to swap over to my main character just to kind of give you a little bit of a spoiler as well as a sneak peek of what you're actually going to be facing on some of the more deadly parts of the island. So this base right here, the first time that you come across it, it's going to have a gigantic gate in the way, and you actually can sneak into this base if you're if you climb around and go through a bunch of very dangerous rocks and stuff like that. But for right now, we're actually like, the main quest eventually has you destroying the front gate, and it's very, very cool and stuff. I'm not going to show all of you the archive because I kind of want, like, if you end up playing this game, you're gonna definitely want to see that place for yourself because there's lots of epic gear in there, and it's very, very deadly. And really reminds me, like, straight up of Dark Souls. Like, it's so cool, man. Like, it really is. So anyway, right now, this is like the big enemy base, and as you can kind of tell just by the amount of soldiers that we got all over the place. And right up here, this I guess might be a bit of a spoiler, but I just kind of want to show you all. You know, this guy is pretty much the strongest enemy in the entire game so far as I can tell. There's a couple other really big, beautiful bosses, and they're actually quite epic. Like, once you end up going to the top right up there's a big Wraith King who tries to, like, push you off the edge and stuff. There's also a gigantic tree golem monster that you can find kind of hidden way on the other side of the island, and that's actually where you end up getting these swords, is from that boss. And then I actually had to fight it a couple times to get a couple of them so I could dual wield it. But I'm trying to get myself to max health here so that we can fight this general guy, because he, like, even with the gear that I'm rocking right now, this guy is something else. He's super powerful. He straight up is the strongest enemy in the game, mostly because he just gets you stun locked the whole time, you know? He's pretty much Sauron. And if you end up getting him in his own stun lock, oh my goodness, potentially, okay, we're gonna die here, actually. Oh goodness. So see what I was talking about with the exploiting? So we're kind of gonna try and lure him around here. Also, just before battle, I activated Stone Skin, which gives us a ton more defense. And as you can see, doesn't really make that much of a difference against this guy. Like, seriously, he's one tough cookie. So if we block him, there we go, GG. If you block, that is still the way to go, even with enemies like that. However, when you are dual wielding, you don't end up getting the same defense buff as you would with a shield. And as you can see here, this guy always drops, like, really good stuff. He always does. And as you can see, we actually got, like, a blue version of his helmet. This one's actually even better than the one I'm using. So, like I said earlier, you know, there's different variations of all the gear that you can find in the game, which is very, very cool. You know, it really adds, like, I guess, replay value, because even though it's kind of just early on the way it is right now, you can still grind out enemies and bosses for better gear if you want. And that guy pretty much can drop, like, the best armor in the game as far as I can tell, because you grind him over and over, and him being a humanoid type of enemy, he drops armor, as opposed to the Wraith up there is a very strange type of creature, so he only ends up dropping a sword, which you can, of course, get a legendary version of. And then these ones are pretty much always the best weapon, because they always end up dropping legendaries as far as I can tell. But anyway, that's the first look of the Memory of Eldurim. I still hope I'm saying that right. I don't know. But either way, you know, it's very, very cool. The main quest, as far as I can tell anyway, only actually goes up to this. It does mention talking to a certain NPC and then going over into the archive area. But as far as I can tell anyway, I can't really find that NPC. It might just be a bug, though. And overall, I would recommend, like, there are definitely a lot of bugs right now, where sometimes if you don't see, like, a quest character, you might have to die or even just close the game and reopen it before they end up spawning. But otherwise, actually, let me show you this too, just to kind of show you what I meant about the insta-death. You can actually use dying as a way of fast travel, because you don't get penalized for death, at least at this point right now. And we are actually going to spawn back at the fire pit I activated here, the campfire. And if you don't end up activating the campfire again, like, upon death, like, the fire has to be active. It has to be lit. And that's how you tell that that is your current spawn point. Otherwise, you know, sleeping in beds is just to recover health and change the time of day, which the time in this game goes extremely slow. So you don't really got to worry about it being nighttime or anything like that. You can pretty much play through the entire game, exploring almost the entire map without even worrying about the time of day. Now, also, there's all sorts of secrets and stuff like that. Whoa! All over the map. You know, you can find all sorts of great stuff, find all sorts of cool bosses and everything like that. And I'm actually really excited to see where this game goes in its development process, because, I mean, as far as I can tell, just looking at earlier versions, it kind of is one of those games that doesn't have updates often, but when it does, it adds a huge bulk ton of content. But either way, thank you all so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it helped you in deciding whether or not you want to purchase this game or to hold off and kind of wait and see where it goes. But I think I could confidently say that as far as an early access game is concerned, this one's probably going to be finished. Like I said, it does promise multiplayer eventually, so that's going to be cool. I don't know whether or not it's going to have more than this one island. This might actually be it, which is still very impressive for an indie game, even if it does just have this one island. There are other islands, and as far as I can tell, you can swim to them, but it's utterly pointless. I mean, there might be a barrier, and you might actually end up dying instantly. I don't know. I didn't really test it. But either way, it's still very, very cool. So thank you all so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed it. Ignore what I said about the fires needing to be lit, because it looks like that is still our spawn, even though it's not on fire. And anyways, if you did enjoy the video, I would very much appreciate if you would smack that like button for me, ladies and gentlemen. Also, links in the description lead to pretty much everything. Sayonara and stay epic, everybody.